Okay, so picking up from where we left off in the last video, I was talking about how I was writing this main program for the MyComplex exercise. They wanted us to go down here. Um, they wanted us to write an application called MyComplex app that uses the MyComplex class that we created already. The application shall prompt the user for two complex numbers, print their values, check for real, imaginary inequality, and carry out all the arithmetic operations. So basically what they're asking us is to just create a menu that takes the users, that prompts the users for two complex numbers. Um, and then they want us to use the methods that we created from the MyComplex class to perform the other operations here that they're asking, like print the values, check for real, or check for imaginary, or check for equality, or carry out all the arithmetic operations. Um, and what I went ahead and I did was I was creating a menu that continuously loops um, until the user enters the E into the terminal. That's the exit case. I think that's what they call it, an exit case. The exit case is once they enter E. So this is a while loop, and it's a menu. So you continuously go through the while loop until the user enters E. Right, that's a condition. While the exit menu is not equal to E, you will continuously go through this loop, this while loop. And once the user enters E, then the condition. So this just runs until it's as long as the exit menu, which is initialized here with blank value, continuously runs until the user enters E. And then here we just print out the menu. We give them their choice. This is just a string to let the user know what options they have, so they can enter C to create two complex numbers, or they can enter E to exit the program. It's pretty simple. Um, and here we initialize a variable of type character to take the user's input, and the character is either C or E is the options that we're giving the user. So what we're doing is if the user enters C for this well with the scanner scans the user's input and stores it into the user M input variable. And I just need to fix this really quick, but basically what I'm going to do is going to have an if-else condition where if the user inputs C or E, then that's fine. Otherwise, we're just going to print out a message that they need to choose either C or E, and then it goes back through the loop and then asks them for their input again. And here we're just writing the condition to check specifically for two double values in one user input, and we're going to separate them using some kind of method that scans that it knows that when there's a space, then we separate the two values and store them into separate um, arrays, maybe, or something. I'm not sure exactly how I'm going to go about that yet. That's at the point where I'm at. So we're going through a for loop is what I was basically doing here, where uh, I is initialized at 0, and the condition is that um, while I is below the length of the array that we created, we initialize an array of type double here with two indexes, 0 and 1, because two, we're only going to take two user inputs, which is two complex numbers, but actually it should be four. So we're gonna change that to four. And remember that when you create an array, the value of the size of the arrays. It cannot be changed. Um, it cannot be increased or decreased. If you want to have an array that grows in size or can reduce its size, I'm not sure if reduced, but I know that for growing the size you would use an array list or something like that. We're not there yet, and we don't really need that right now. We know that we only need four indexes or four memory locations to store each value that the user inputs for the complex number, the real and the imaginary number. So remember, complex number is a real and an imaginary number. Um, so here we go through the for loop. If the enter C, then what we want to do is we're going to do is we're going to store the two complex numbers in the first and second index. Um, yeah. So okay, so each time, okay. But actually, what we might want to do is just have an array of size 2. Store each value, each complex number as a string in each individual index, and then separate those values and store them into a different array. So first we're going to have to fix this. I was actually using somebody gave an example of how to do this on the website. I think it was on Stack Overflow. And I ended up closing my browser, which is in incognito mode, so I can't find the website. Right, so here is the highest upvoted um, solution to how to read multiple integer values from a single line of input in Java on Stack Overflow here, and this user named Prasanth Lewis. He gave this, which I already kind of applied to my code. So he's using the buffer reader class and creating a new instance of the class. And the parameter, the arguments, which is weird, he's creating a new instance of the input stream reader, I think. And he's passing the system classes in method. I'm not sure. And then we have the string. He's creating a string here called lines. And then he's using the instance of the buffer reader. And then he's using a method called readLine, which I'm guessing is a part of the buffer reader class. And so that's what I kind of did here. I have the instance of buffer reader class and a new string called lines with the so and what he's doing is he's creating an array of strings called strs, and then what it's equal to is lines, which he's using lines from, which is this string here, which uses the buffer reader instance, and it's using the read line method. And then he's using it, and he's trimming using the trim method, and then using the split method, I guess. And this is what we need to know how to so with Python, there's like a separator. I think is what they call a separator. And it's used to determine when to stop I don't know, reading a string, or how to it's used to when where to stop and cut like certain parts of a string or something or whatever. And so this with Python by default it's spaces, and here it's kind of similar where we're basically changing what the separator would be. Um, so we'll go ahead and create the array of strings here. Lines trim split, and here is the separator. Um, there's a way to read this actually. I can't remember where it was, but there's a thing that can tell us. So I use it all the time on HackerRank code. Okay, 1 second. So what he's doing is he's using a for loop, and he's doing the same thing as us, where he's using an array of strings, and he's initialized I as an integer with value 0, and until so while I is below the length of the strings array, it will add 1 to the um, to I every time we go every every time we go through this loop. So this is similar here, and so yeah, it's probably best that we use um, an array of type string. So I can go ahead and just remove this. 1 second. Actually, we might need this after. First, we're going to be storing it into this array. And what he's doing is let's see here, the array A, which does not exist. Um, we're going to use the real complex one array of doubles that we created. Um, so basically what we're saying here is we're using a name of the array, and the index is whichever um, value of I we're currently iterating through. If that makes sense. So if I is at 0, we're going through this loop and I is still at 0. This is going to be the 0th index. And whatever we choose to happen here will happen in the 0th index of this array. And then once we're done through that, going through this line of code, and we'll go through here again, I will be iterated to 1, will become 1, and this we'll be applying whatever's on the right side of the equals sign to the first index of the number 1 index of the real complex array. So here what he's doing is he's using the integer class, and he's parsing the int. But for us, it's actually going to be double. So double dot parse, because we're trying to work with a double, not an integer. So he's parsing this. He's using the double class, which is the class when we create a variable type double, for example. I think it's creating an instance of double. I can't remember. I can't remember, but then we're using the parse double method of the class, and we're parsing the string that we created earlier of the array of strings, for the particular index that we're currently iterating through, I guess. Uh, Here we actually want to. So I guess I deleted my scanner. But actually, we're going to be using the buffer reader, I think. Which one are we using? 1 second. So what I'm guessing is that this uh, this is taking the user's input, the buffer reader reading line. So user input is what we're going to use here. And we're going to move that down here. So we want string this, and actually, no, that's the menu, so that's fine. Um, yeah, this is for the options, and here's where we want to read the user's input. So yeah, this is fine. I wonder if we could use the buffered reader here like that. So I guess we could use the read method from the buffered class, which only reads one character. It returns an integer, so we should just cast it as a character. I don't know if that's possible. Um, let's see here, based on what I'm reading on this site here. Um, I know if we would. I don't. What's the character class called? Is it just char? To char? I wonder if this would work. There's no such thing as the char class. I wonder if it's character. There is a character class, primitive type for char. Okay. Um, Now what's the to? Is there no to character? Java to char. Convert string to char. That's not what we want. We want the char at method returns a single character only. To get all characters, I want to convert to char. Using the char at method, we convert a string. This is anyways. Apparently using this before the method, whoops, will cast as a character. It must be because we're not having an issue here, right? And we have to store characters only, so yeah. So I don't have to use a scanner. Um, Scanner object or instance. I can just keep using the BR reader. Whoa, what's going on here? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. Why is there an issue? Whoa, why? Why? So I'm having an issue now. It says unhandled exception type input output exception. Two quick fixes. Add throws, declaration surround with try and catch. So it's based on what the solutions are and based on um, what the description of the problem is that we need to handle the exception input output exception. So we need to add a catch to that or whatever. See how they recommend us do that. Yeah. So this. Okay. Um. Interesting. What? Wow. Interesting. Very interesting. Why though? Why? We need to catch the input-output exception. So catching exceptions is something that we learned in one of my in my what is it data structures course in college, and yeah, so that's basically what's going on here. It says chapter 11 exceptions. Run the Java language specification. I guess this is like a documentation for the Java language. When a program violates the semantic constraints of the Java programming language, the Java virtual machine signals this error to the program as an exception. An example of such violation is an attempt to index outside the bounds of an array. Some programming languages and their implementations react to such errors by parent peremptorily terminating the program. I don't know what that means. Um, Other programming languages allow an implementation to react in an arbitrary or unpredictable way. Neither of these approaches is compatible with the design goals of the Java SE platform to provide portability and robustness. Instead, the Java programming language specifies that an exception will be thrown when semantic constraints are violated and will cause a non-local transfer of control from the point where the exception occurred to a point that can be specified by the programmer. An exception is said to be thrown from the point where it occurred and is said to be caught at the point which control is transferred. Programs can also throw exceptions explicitly using throw statement. Explicit use of throw statements provides an alternative to the old-fashioned style of handling error conditions by returning funny values, such as the integer value -1, where a negative value would not normally be expected. Experience shows that too often funny values are ignored or not checked for by callers, leading to programs that are not robust, exhibit undesirable behavior, or both. Every exception is represented by an instance of the class throwable or one of its subclasses. Such an object can be used to carry information from the point at which an exception occurs to the handler that catches it. Handlers are established by catch clauses or of try statements. During the process of throwing an exception, the Java virtual machine abruptly completes one by one any expression, statement, method, and constructor invocations, initializers, and fields. Field initialization expressions that have begun but not complete execution in the current thread. This process continues until a handler is found that indicates that it handles that particular exception by naming the class of the exception or superclass of the exception. If no such handler is found, then the exception may be handled by one of a hierarchy of uncaught exception handlers. Thus, every effort is made to avoid letting an exception go unhandled. So we must catch the exceptions. Signals that an input-output exception of some sort has occurred. This class is the general class of exceptions produced by failed or interrupted input-output operations. Okay. Anyways, well, here we are reading a character. Or, yeah. Okay. And then if it's C, then we go through for loop. So let's just sum that out. That print real complex one high. Let's just do this, run the program and see. Right, that's because this forgot to remove this. And it actually needs to be transferred down here. So once we're in here, then we read the user's inputs. We'll just tell them system.out.print. Enter a complex number. Real number format, real number imaginary. Very complex number format, real number, imaginary number. Okay, whatever. So now, here after this, we're going to take the input from the user. String lines. Why? Stupid thing. Anyways, string lines to new to br read lines. Remember that. And then down here, string of arrays, array of strings, I mean, name that lines dot trim dot split. Now let me just remove this. What do they mean it's undefined? Oh, there's no S. Um, yeah. Okay, so I decided that I'm just going to redo all this from scratch for the main program because, yeah, you don't need the buffer reader class apparently. So just create the main program, public static void main string arguments here, and then we'll create a scanner object, scanner equals new scanner system dot in, and then make sure you import the scanner uh, library or whatever. Um, Next, we'll just initialize user input as a character. So user menu input is equal to just whatever. And then here we'll go through a while loop. So while user menu input is not equal to e, then continuously loop through the while loop. So system dot out dot print what the heck print ln choice menu new line, and here we have C create two complex numbers, enter a complex number. That's all that they want. But we'll just create a looping menu with options, and E new line, E exit program. Something was wrong with my code before. I Something was seriously wrong with it. I couldn't figure it out, so I just deleted everything. Um, it was really weird. Like, anyways, um, maybe something to do with the indentation. Why is there like five? So we have the class. What the heck is this? See, this is what I'm talking about. Like the main program, while loop, main program, class. What the heck? Like literally. Anyways, so we're gonna take the user's input, and user menu input is equal to scanner dot next dot what the heck? I hate that auto thing. Char at 0. So what's this gonna do is gonna take the user's input as a string. Whatever string they input is gonna take the first character, the 0th index of the string. And remember, a string is just an array of characters, right? So it's going to take the 0th index character. Um, and then after that, um, then we go through the actual menu choices. So if um, user menu input is equal to C, then and then here system.out.println um, enter a complex number, and here is where they'll enter a complex number. What we're going to do is, whoops, enter, that's probably where it was. I probably accidentally used this curly brace in my previous program, and it wasn't working properly. That's probably why. Enter, but I didn't see any errors. It didn't show any errors. Anyways, enter a complex number. So here, um, let's see, scanner. So we're going to store this in option C. Complex number is equal to it's gonna be a string array. So string complex number is equal to scanner dot next line. No, next line dot split, and it's gonna be for every space that we split the values and store them into this string array. And then so else for now, else and please review the menu options. So okay, then we'll just go through a for loop here. For and it's I is equal to 0, while I is below complex number dot length plus plus sum dot out dot print complex number I. That's simple. We should add the exit condition here as an option. So else if user menu input equal to E, and we just break through the loop. Else somehow please review the menu options. For now, that's just what we're gonna have. Let's run it and see if anything's wrong, which probably there will be. Yeah, so why is this printing out? It's that we're supposed to be getting the user's input first, and then it's supposed to print this out. What the heck is this? Like, I don't see what's wrong. It has something to do with this, I'm pretty sure. If user M input is C, system out the print and enter a complex number. To enter a complex number. So yeah, the issue, which is something that I've known about before, I just forgot about it. I was trying to remember what it was, and I spoke to one of the communities I'm a part of on Discord, and the sorority community. Oh, and by the way, rest in peace, Sortie, um, Sortie MS, Sortie MapleStory, the server. They got DMCA'd, or I think they got a letter of cease and desist. I'm not sure if it's the same thing, but they got a letter of cease and desist to stop their operations, stop running the server and everything. So they had to shut down the server after. I think they've been running the server for like, I don't know, over 6 years. I can't remember. Probably longer than that. But the source that I'm using is actually based off of Sortie. Um, Apparently somebody bought their V214 source or something like that. Um, and they released it to public, and that's how I have my hands on it. Um, Shout out to Sortie devs and the whole team behind Sortie MS, because those guys are really cool in a community that's very toxic and garbage, to be honest. Um, but to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if they re-released under a new name, a new server name. Um, Especially considering they had like a huge revamp of the game or something like that going on, where they're like trying to implement some kind of new system to the game, which they were about to release, and then they got shut down. And I think maybe that has to do with why they got shut down. Maybe because their source got released, the V214 source, and MapleStory is like, no, we can't have that. We don't want people with newer versions of sources. We need to shut this project down or whatever. I don't know. Um, but yeah, so the issue is just nothing wrong specifically with my code. I mean, you can even see it, right? There's no errors. Everything's written properly. The issue is this issue with the scanner. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and read what this guy said to me. He says, when you enter C, so here, when we enter the option, uh, what happens is whether we would enter E or C or whatever, the issue is that with, he says, uh, there's a new line that gets left in the input buffer, causing the next line to return an empty string. So here, for this line, because there's a new line in the input buffer, is what he's saying. Um, it's causing us to return an empty string here in this next line when we're taking the user's input here. And he says add a scanner.next line after um, here, so that the scanner.next line gets consumed, and then it'll work. Which is true, because I remember back when I was in my doing my courses, one of my professors in college for my computer science program, I think it was my data structures professor. It could have even been before that, because this is actually very important and probably left a lot of people confused. He was discussing this issue because probably some people were bringing it up. Why isn't my scanner scanning for the user input not working after I've scanned previously? Uh, and it's like this guy told me. He said, shout outs to um, Alias from the Sortie community. He says, again, I'm just going to repeat what I said earlier. when you enter, so when we enter whatever the user enters whatever string here, character here, or a string, it could be a string too. It's going to take the first character in the first index of the array. Because remember, a string is an array of characters. So it's going to take the 0th index character that's stored in there. And when the scanner takes the string, in that case, um, uh, so yeah. Uh, so basically, we would just add another um, scanner, scanning the next line, just to get rid of that input buffer, new line in the input buffer, whatever. So scanner dot scan next line, and then that should work. Um, so here, C, enter a complex number, 4.2 to 4.4. After that, so we entered the number. I don't think it's gonna make any difference. It shouldn't make any difference if you put it here or before. Um, but either ways, so here we're scanning the user's input and we're splitting it for every space, um, and storing it in the array of strings called to convert. And here for the length of the array, um, we convert each index's value to a double and store it in complex number I. And then we'll just print out complex number, each index of the array, so that we can see if it's doing what it's supposed to. 2.2 and 4.4. So we can see that it did do what it's supposed to, and we're printing out both of the values that are separated in each their own index in the array. And here it says that we're trying to create two new complex numbers. So, um, so after this for loop, what we can do is technically we could write um, a method for this. This is the end of the main method. So here we can write public double um, to double. But this would there's actually a method called to double, I think. So we would have to because I don't want to repeat this line here, this block of code here. So we could just add it to a method. So we'll just call parse to double. Parse to double. Um, and what we're going to pass, we don't need to pass anything on this. We do need to pass something. Um, uh, can keep this private because we're not calling this from another class. Um, for int I is equal to 0, I is below, what's the name of the to convert line I plus to convert line. Sorry. Complex number I is equal to double dot parse double. The string is to convert I. What's the issue here? To convert cannot be resolved to a variable because it's in this while loop. So we would need to declare it outside. It's actually in the main program. So since this is outside the main program, we I mean, technically you could make this work, but I mean, I guess we should, right? But then if we're writing these variables outside the main method, that means that other classes can see. Uh, well, only if we don't declare the access modifier private, which we could do. So, but then we have to modify the whole program. So we have a private to convert, which is an array of strings. So private string array convert. But we have to initialize this, right? Doesn't look like it. Yeah, this needs to be. So the size is going to be set once we scan. But then the issue is, okay, I guess. Then I have to move this out as well. Complex numbers. Private complex number. What kind of so type double array. Double. And then, but are we actually getting those? Are those values being stored here though? Um, they should be here. We need to return the array itself. So once this is done, then we return the array. Like this. What is the issue here? Type as much. Can I convert from double to double? Cannot be resolved to a type. Right, this needs to be a double array, right? Complex number cannot be resolved to a type. This is an array of type double, no? Does it need to be a capital D? Okay, it does need to be a capital D. Um, so here we can just call this method, but we would need to pass the value. Um, and what was it that we need to pass? We need to pass to convert. We don't need to because it already can get it here. But it would be a good idea to just have it be passed rather than having this variable outside like that. Uh, yeah, so here we would use it. Parse to double and pass the array to convert. Cannot make a static reference to the non-static method parse to double from the type myComplex class. So I was so basically the issue was if I just go back here and I remove cannot make a static reference to the non-static method, which is this method, which is non-static. Non-static methods can only be called by instances of a class. So basically if you want to call a method without an instance calling the method, you would make the method static is what I'm understanding here. So basically I turned the method static. Here you can see. And then the issue here is that you can't make a static reference to the non-static field. So basically I'm guessing it also means that you need to have an instance to call a non-static field, in which case it would be the attribute of the instance. But in this case, we're not using any instances of of a class, so we can just declare them as static. So they'll never be used by an instance, which is fine because this is the main method and we're not creating an instance of the main method. So that should be fine. And then we have the website here. That again, Geeks for Geeks, in my opinion, is a good website if you're trying to find information. Based on my experience, it says the difference between static and non-static method in Java. A static method is a method that belongs to a class. but it does not belong to an instance of that class, and this method can be called without the instance or object of that class. Every method in Java defaults to a non-static method without static keyword preceding it. The non-static methods can access a static method and static variable. Okay, so basically what they're saying is that an instance can call a static method, or at least a non-static method of an instance can call a static method and a static variable without creating an instance of the object. Let us clarify the differences below are the various important differences among these pointers as follows. Accessing members and methods. Okay, so let me read this again. Let us clarify the differences below are the various important differences among these pointers as follows. Accessing members and methods, calling process, mining process, overriding process, memory allocation. Accessing members and methods. A static method can only access static data, members, and static methods of another class or same class, but cannot access non-static methods and variables. Also, a static method can rewrite the values of any static data member. A non-static method can access static data members and static methods as well as non-static members and methods of another class or same class. Also can change the values of any static data member. Okay, I guess, and then let's see, calling process. The memory of a static method is fixed in the RAM. For this reason, we don't need the object of a class in which the static method is defined to call the static method. To call the method, we need to write the class name followed by the name of the method. Calling a static method with the class name. So the memory of a static method is fixed in the RAM. For this reason, we don't need the object of a class in which the static method is defined to call the static method. So you don't need to have an instance to call the static method. You can just use the class name. To call the method, we need to write the class name followed by the name of the method. The memory of the non-static method is not fixed in the RAM, so we need a class object to call. So basically what they're saying is that with static methods, anyways, the memory of this non-static method is not fixed in the RAM, so we need a class object to call the non-static method. To call the method, we need to write the name of the method followed by the name of the class object name. Binding process. In a static method, the method used compile time or early. Okay, let's skim over this for now. Um, so now, let me go back 1 second. Now, complex number is static. So that means memory allocated to it is always the same, or memory address or location or something. So let's see how this plays out when I call the method. I use the method and I pass the array into the method, and then I return the other array. So here we convert, so public static double complex number. Here complex number So the size will be set here. Wait, no, the size is here. It's equal to 4. I think it's better if we just declare that over here, new double for size 4. So now when we run, so now we're going to go ask the user for another input. What is this for? Why is this here? Enter a second complex number. And then string of arrays. We can just use to convert here, right? So just next line. No. Next line. Split. Here. Split is like so. Return complex number. Okay, that's fine. And then we use, no, we don't even need to call the method here, right? We can parse both values after, right? So parse to double, to convert. And we'll even just come here and print out system.out print complex number. So let's run this and see what happens. 2.2 and 4.4, and then 5.5 and 7.7. So, okay, so what's... Okay, so what's happening here? So we scan the user's input, and we split the two values entered and store them within a string array, an array of strings called toConvert. And it looks like we're replacing the values with this line. I'm guessing because the size of the array is already set here to be 2 indexes. So we would have to declare the size to be I would say it needs to be 4. So private static string what is it? To convert is equal to new string size 4. Now we have a set size, and I think we should be able to, let's exit the program. We should be able to store every value now. So C Okay, now we're having an issue, which is pretty obvious. Same issue that we had before, so we have to get rid of the input buffer. Let me go back to the part where the guy helped me. He says, when you enter, so there's a new line or slash n that gets left in the input buffer, causing the next line to return an empty string. Add a scanner next line method after, so it gets consumed. So right here, scanner dot next line. That is very annoying. That is very annoying. See, 2.2, 4.4, 6.6, 12.12. Wait, what? Huh. Okay, I guess that's not what was happening. Um, that's weird. Was it just my imagination? See? Okay, so it was just my imagination, it seems like. 6.6 and 12.12. That was really weird. Okay, so same thing is happening. So now I have to try to figure out what the other issue is. So string to convert scanner. So we're storing two strings in an array of string, which is equal, it has 4 indexes, so we know that there's no other issue, right? But how do I add it to the next? How do I add it to the next indexes that are available? Because we know that this should go through a loop 4 times, right? Because the length of the two converts array of strings is 4. So there's 4 indexes, 0, 1, 2, and 3. Um, and then what we're doing is we're parsing all of those indexes as to a double, and then storing them into the complex number array of doubles. And then we're printing that out for each index of the complex number of doubles. So I'm just guessing that this scanner isn't storing the values into the next available empty index of the array. I'm guessing. So let's just go back and choose C again, and then 2.2 and 4.4, and 6.6 and 12.12. And it's the same thing, it still has only 2 values. Right? Am I wrong here, or? Because we know for sure, right, they're of size 4. And yet we're going through this loop 4 times, and, well, yeah, because it's of size 4, right? So shouldn't we be printing empty indexes or something? Hmm. Let me see. Yeah, shouldn't that? This is weird. So, that's very annoying. Because this is how they want it, right? Otherwise, I would just ask the user to input maybe two complex numbers within one input. But if we look at the website, the problem, it says clearly here, it says enter complex number 1, real and imaginary part, and then the user enters complex number, and then it says, it prompts the user for another complex number, right? So we have to follow what they're asking, which is what I'm doing, but um, it's not worded exactly the same, but I'm doing exactly what they want. Just the issue is I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. Uh, I could, I should be able to remove this, right? So I think it was maybe I was storing it into two different locations. I know that sounds weird, but let's see. So 2.2 and 4.4, 6.6 and 12.12. Okay, so we're definitely not storing it in a different location, I think. Well, they shouldn't be, right? So is it wiping what we already had in there? And then, so I think the issue is, here, I think the issue is, um, for to convert, which is declared and initialized outside the main method, in order, this doesn't make sense though, right? Whatever is stored in it should be stored in it, in this, right? Outside of the method? Or does it only exist within this if else condition? This if condition. This is so annoying. This is very annoying. Because I don't want to have to repeat this twice, right? In the code. Instead, I just want to be able to call this method and then perform everything within the method in here. But I feel like this, which is here, when you highlight it, it's talking about this right here. Um, yeah, so it's being stored here, right? And then, so what's the issue here? Like, let me just test something else out. Print ln to convert 0 and to convert 1. What? What is he? Anyways, use a formatted print method. String space. Okay. So just run this again. No, what the heck? What is this? Did I not save it? Okay. See? Exception. Array index out of bounds. We haven't even gotten here yet, right? You need to scan the user's input first. Like, how is it out of bounds? Isn't it initialized here with 4 indexes? This is so annoying. So it seems like based on what somebody told me in the sortie community, let's see here. One second. Yeah, we're just gonna have to store the arrays in a separate array, I guess. Based on what somebody was telling me is that the split method just replaces, I guess, the contents and the indexes of the array instead of moving on to the next empty index of the array. So it doesn't work like that. So we'll have to convert one of size 2. And then we will have to convert to size 2 as well. And what we'll do is we'll store the first complex number in this array. And it'll store an array of strings, of course. And it'll store this, it will split the value entered by the user based on the condition that it needs a white space. You can change this condition to whatever you want. If you want it to be for every comma, but for us it'll be a white space, just like on the website as it shows here. There are the users entering to a complex number, and the white space it's separating them. And then we'll store the next complex number into convert to, and then we'll just convert them like so. Parse to double to convert to. And so with that, here what happens is that we're converting them to double and then storing them in the array. But actually what we need to do here is we need to check if there's anything in the array already. If there is, then we need to move to the next array and then store next index and then store the values there. And also, it seems like I think it might just be better to use an array list. Actually, I know I keep changing everything, but that's just how programming is. You're not, anyways. You learn, right? So let me just figure out how we use an array list again. It's been quite a while. How about array list? Let's see, where's good for these? Java ArrayList is a part of the Java collection framework, and it is a class of Java util package. It provides us with dynamic arrays in Java. Though it may be slower than standard arrays, but can be helpful in programs where lots of manipulation array is needed. This class is found in Java util package. The main advantages of ArrayList are if we declare an array, then it's needed to mention the size, but in the ArrayList, it is not needed to mention the size of ArrayList. If you want to mention the size, then you can do it. What is ArrayList in Java? ArrayList is a Java class implementation using a list interface. ArrayList, as the name suggests, provides the functionality of a dynamic array where the size is not fixed as an array. Also, as a part of the collection framework, it has many features not available with arrays. So list is an interface, and array list implements list, and list extends collection. So collection is the superclass. This is the sorry, subclass, I think, basically, and then array list implements the interface list. And this array list is, if I remember correctly, something that they use in terms of data structures. I can't remember, but um, let's see here. How do they declare an array list? The size of the array list. What? Declaring the array list with initial size n. Array list integer array1 equals new array list integer n with initial size n. What? Anyways, let's see here. I do wonder if you can set the. You must be able to set the access modifier, right? Private array list double and string equals new array. I'm looking at the website. Now let me look at it and see. Yeah, so get the name to convert. New array list. And then I'm assuming we have again the type, or is it not? Let's see. Yeah, type. And then let me see something here in parentheses for the size would be here of size n. So what's the error here we're getting? Probably need to import. Yeah, we need to import the class. And we're still getting an issue. It says type mismatch cannot convert from array list double to array list string. Oh right, this is a type string. I forgot. String. So, and then now what is this issue here? It says n cannot be resolved to a variable. So n, we don't need to declare the size, right? It can grow in size, and um, now we can use to convert here. And see what the error here is. It says cannot make a static reference to the non-static field to convert. Um, okay, 1 second. I know videos are long and stuff like that. I've been dragging them out a lot because I try to explain everything that goes on and stuff like that. So of course sometimes they drag out. The video would have been a lot shorter if it was just me doing this class, but now we're going into new territory, quote unquote, because now they want us to create menus, and I just wanted to show you guys how to create a continuous loop menu where like it continuously asks the users, continuously prompts the user for like gives them the choice menu over and over again until they want to exit and stuff like that. Which is actually something you learn. It's actually something you learn like at, kind of at the beginning or second semester of computer science. You know what? So we can't. So let's go back. Actually, let's. Oops. What the heck is this? Okay, my bad. Let's go back. What we will use an array list, but we will stick to having two arrays, which we store the two values or the four values. And what will happen is that here, because the issue here was that we would, with this, we would just, let's see here, 1 second, let me open this, maximize this so I can read it properly. In our method parse to double, we are parsing every, so to convert, um, we have, here the issue is that we need, okay, so we're passing the ones that, the, the arrays, okay, that's fine, so it knows which one we're talking about. It converts, parses the strings to double, and then stores it in complex number. But what we're gonna do instead is we're gonna, because what's gonna happen is that it's just gonna replace, um, it's gonna go like complex number zero index, the array zero with index, and then replace what was there from the last time that the method was called. So what we're gonna do is instead we're gonna use an array list and then just add those values, and it will add to the next index. So private, but then there's probably going to be another issue. We'll try to solve that after. Private uh, array list string um, to convert. No, it's gonna. This is where we're gonna store. So complex number will be this. Complex number is equal to new array list type string. Uh, and yeah. So now it says cannot be resolved to a type. We need to import array list. Where is it? Okay, there it is. The heck is the issue now? So we're gonna add, right? We're gonna add. 1 second. Add. Okay, 1 second. 1 second. 1 second. I think it's like this. A minute. Okay, so there was a few issues with the code. So first of all, the method was static. Actually, it probably needs to be static. I'll make a static reference to the non-static method. Right, so it probably needs to be static. Also, I originally wrote the type for the array list string, but it's actually a double because we're storing the converted or the parsed strings to double. And then we can get rid of this. We don't need it, but the issue comes with how we call this, because it needs to be static, but then the array list is not static, so this is annoying. So to solve the issue, we just make the array list static. Let me just go over static again because it's still something I kind of forgot already. Where's the static? Okay, so Java static versus non-static with for geeks. Static method is a method that belongs to a class, but it does not belong to an instance. Right, so there's no issue because before, when I didn't really know what static was, I always confused it with it being that anything static cannot change in size or whatever, or something like that. It's some weird understanding of it, but basically it has to do with what can access it, I guess. So instance methods can. So a static method is a method that belongs to a class, but it does not belong to an instance of that class, and this method can be called without the instance or object of that class. Every method in Java defaults to non-static method without static keyword preceding it. Non-static methods can access any static method and static variable without creating an instance of the object. Okay. So it's just basically it's has everything to do with instance methods and non with instances and no instances. Um, so if I remember correctly, an instance. Let's read it. Accessing members method. A static method can only access static data members and static methods of another class or same class, but cannot access non-static methods and variables. So anything static cannot access non-static methods and variables. The only thing that can access non-static methods and non-static variables are instances. But non-static methods can access static methods and static uh, data members, if I remember correctly. So we just declare the array list as static. It's not going to be used by any instance, so there's no issue there. The main method is not supposed to have any instance of itself, so there's no issue there at all. Um, so it's pretty much set. I already ran the program, and you can see the output here. It's working perfectly fine. We enter C to create two new complex numbers. The user enters two complex numbers, and we split the numbers using the scanner next line split method, and well, the scanner class is split method. And then I just printed out the array list here, and we can see the contents in each index. 2.2, 4.4, and 12.12. So they've all been split correctly and stored in their own individual indexes. Um, so we finally have that done, which is great, and it's so with that being done, we can basically there should be absolutely no issues going forward because the rest of the things that they ask us to do is just use the methods from the myComplex class. In which case we would create an instance of the myComplex class. So just give me one second here. And to be fair, What we should be doing is we should be creating an instance with these two, an instance of my complex class with these two values stored into are passed as arguments when we create the instances of my complex, the real and the imaginary number. So that's what we're going to go ahead and we're going to change the code to do that. Um, Give me 1 second here. I'm looking. I should probably bring this out. Actually, just do this and should be fine. Right? More so everybody can see. Um, yeah, okay. So what we're gonna do now is when the user it needs to be parsed to double. So once it's parsed to double, then we come here and we just create a new instance. Uh, so my complex, um, new complex, and the values after they're parsed. Uh, an application called MyComplex that uses the MyComplex class, MyComplex app. I mean, application will prompt the user for two complex numbers, print their values. So it doesn't really matter how many. We like it does actually. They say we only need two, so we don't have to continuously prompt the user to create new instances. We just have two, so we'll just have two to make things simpler, and that's what they're asking, anyways. Um, so it's parsed and it's stored into my complex number array list. So, and we know it's in the first two indexes. So, my complex class, uh, my complex. So we're creating a new instance of my complex, and here we'll have the my. How do we? It's complex number. So complex number, and we're gonna get the zeroth index value. Just give me 1 second to see how we access the array list indexes again. Important features of array lists to randomly access the list cannot be used for primitive types. Cannot be used for primitive types like int charge. Do we need a wrapper class for such cases? What are they talking about? Array lists in Java can be seen as a vector. Array list is not synchronized. Array list add all. Clear clone contains capacity for each, performs a given action for each element. Get. So it's the get method, I'm pretty sure. Dot get, and the index is 0. And then we have complex number dot get 1. So the value, we're just getting the value stored in the indexes, the specific indexes that we have in between the parentheses, and that's what the get method does. It returns the value stored in whichever index you're specifying. What the heck is this? Uh, Sometimes I hate this program. Anyways, so yeah, we're creating a new instance here, and we're setting two values. The real value is the first one, and the second value is the second one. Same thing here, new my complex instance complex number dot get. Here it would be 2, and here's complex number dot get 3 is the last index that we know has something stored in it. So there we have it. We created two new instances of my complex with the values from that the user inputs. Um, Print their values. Check for real, imaginary, and equality. So they want us to print the values. So we'll just use the getter methods. Um, but we should give them names for sure. We should definitely give the instances some names so we can refer to them. Um, Complex 1. And then below here, we're going to have complex 2. My complex 2 is equal to new my complex. So now we can refer to them. And they want us to get the values. So we'll just use the getter methods. Complex 1 dot get imaginary. And we're going to print that out. Print and here, and they want us to get the real value as well. We'll do the real number first because that's just kind of the order that it is. Real complex number 1. We could add an option in the menu where the user can choose to get the real and imaginary number and stuff like that as choices for the if else condition here for the menu, but that's just going to add a lot of unnecessary things right now. We'll just get this over with, and in the future we might do more in-depth menus, but for now this is just how it's going to be. So yeah, and then we're going to print out the imaginary number value as a string. Complex 1, complex number 1, complex imaginary, and then your real number and then they want us to test the setter methods, I think, as well. They want us to check if for real, imaginary, and equality. So they want us to check. They don't want us to. No, they said they asked to get the values. So that's the first step. And the next step, they want us to check for real, imaginary, and complex. Real and imaginary. With the method is real, is imaginary. So if it's real, will be equal to 0. I mean, that's what they asked for, I'm pretty sure. If we go back up here, it says is real boolean. Return true if it's 0. So, yeah, pretty sure it's addressing for that. You can even look at the website here. Adding, multiplying. Quicker. What do the rules? Let us try conjugate, dividing, multiplying, notation. Yeah, I'm not sure. Hey, you guys wondering what that website was? It was just a website that I used for knowing what a complex number was. I didn't know what it was before I I started this exercise. System.out.print is complex number one imaginary? Uh, number one real? So return true if real number real. Be right back. Where were we? So we were here. Is a complex number one real number real? So we're basically asking if the real number of complex number one is real. In which case we would check that by using the instance and calling the is real method, which will return true or false as the answer. That's what we're going to print out, true or false. Is complex. Actually, one second. I'm gonna look at the class again. Okay, no. So is real checks if imaginary number is equal to 0. So I guess to determine if the real number is real, the imaginary number needs to be equal to 0. Anyways, here we're gonna do number, complex one dot is imaginary. Is complex number one imaginary number real? Imaginary? This is so weird. Anyways, so we'll just exit this program here because it was still running the whole time. And re-execute the program. 2.2, 4.4, and 6.6, 12.12. So here we can see in the console, we can see, I can just pull it up a little bit. You can see here the complex number one real number is 2.2, complex number one imaginary number is 4.4. Is complex number one real number real? It's false, and imaginary is false. I'm not sure if there is real and is imaginary number, if that's how they wanted it to be. Is real returns true if imaginary is 0. And that's basically what I did. I mean, to my understanding, what they're asking for, it says is real if imaginary number is equal to 0, then we return true, else we return false, right? Um, so apparently, our real and imaginary numbers are not real and not imaginary, which doesn't make sense to me, but whatever. They need to be more specific on what they're asking for because I don't know. Um, and then what they want us to do is then we go to check if for equality. So there must be a method for equality equals. Um, yes, equality between the two complex numbers. Um, so here, yes, I'm gonna retype everything because that's just how it is. Uh, um, complex number. And yes, it's annoying, but it's how you get familiarize yourself. Complex number two, real number. Complex two dot get real. Get real, dude. Get real, dude. System out that print ln complex number two, yeah. Imaginary number. Complex two dot get imaginary, and then sum out. Let's start using the printf method just to familiarize ourselves with it again. So we have to use format specifiers to grab the values and print them out as strings. Um, well, the values are gotten here, and then they're stored, they're output here. I think that's how it works. So here we have a complex. And what are we trying to get again here? We're trying to get check if it's real. So it's just going to be a true or false value. Is complex number two real number real? Question mark. Um, and here we'll use this format specifier, and it's of type double, so it's point f. Um, no, it's a string actually. It's a Boolean value, but I'm pretty sure Boolean returns a string. So I think it's S. I can't remember. Complex two dot is real. So let's just exit the program here and then run it again. Go C to create two new complex numbers. Enter our two complex numbers. Uh, So it says complex number two, real number, real, false. So it's working properly. And with the um, printf method, it doesn't skip to the next line after whatever line it outputs on, unlike the print ln method. So you have to manually type in a new line. Format it to have a new line. So printf and we is complex number two imaginary number imaginary question mark percent s format specifier and slash n or a new line, and then complex 2 dot is imaginary. And after that, we can check for equality for both of them. So um, complex 1 dot equals complex 2. It returns true or false. So sum not out dot printf is complex number 1 and complex number 2 equal? Question mark. And we would come here. What's wrong here? Sum dot out dot printf without the parentheses. I forgot. Need another parentheses here. Parentheses. We can see if they're equal or not. Let me end the program real quick. Actually, let's and then have a new line after that. And I run the program again and see. So create two new complex numbers, 2.2, 4.4, and 6.6, 12.12. And is complex number 1 and complex 2 number 2 equal? Nothing is output there because we didn't put the format specifier. So %s, exit the program, save, and then run again. Same thing, 2.2, 4.4, 6.6, 12.12. It's false, obviously, because they're two different numbers, right? That's all we're doing. We're just comparing the attributes, the same attributes to each other for each instance. And carry out all the arithmetic operations which are add into magnitude, add into, and add new. Okay. Okay. System.out.println. The magnitude of complex number 1 is plus complex 1 dot magnitude. Same thing we're going to do here, but we're going to use a printf statement here. Sum dot out dot printf. The magnitude of complex number 2 is complex 2 dot magnitude. No. Magnitude. Hello? Mag. It starts with M. This thing. Println. What's the issue? System.out.println. Get rid of this comma here. Exit the program. Run the program again. Save it first. Run the program. See. Whoa, now there's an issue. see, 2.2, 4.4, 6.6, 12.12. The magnitude of complex number 1 is this, and the magnitude of complex number 2 is not being printed out because I forgot to format specifier. So let's exit the program, saved it, run the program again, C 2.2, 2.4, 6.6, 12.12. The magnitude of complex number 2 is this. So now let's exit the program and let's just add a new line here because the way it was output was formatted was not nice. Then we want to do the add new method. Complex the add into. Let's see here. So add into takes an we'll see. System.out.println complex one dot add into takes another complex instance, my complex instance, complex 2. Yeah, it doesn't recognize it because it's being created after. So this needs to go after. Let's go after. What's here? Needs to go here, down here, or anywhere after the creation of the instance itself. The complex number one plus complex number two. Well, complex number one, add complex number two into complex number one equals. So we don't need to try the method once. Honestly, we didn't even need to do this for both of them. But anyways, so system.out.print f we'll use this time. So complex 2 dot add new, and here we're passing two arguments as a real and imaginary number that will be added to create a new instance, I think. Is that how the method works? We're passing a new instance. We're adding those two instances and then creating a new instance with the value. Okay. So complex one. Complex number one added into complex number two, and create a new complex number with the result is equal to, and then we returned a new instance, and it's returned as a double, I think. Well, we're returning a new instance which calls the toString method, I think. So if we run the program again after we saved it, to the changes, enter the new values, And then we can see here, complex number 1 added in is equal to, okay, so yeah, it is called the two-string method of the myComplex class. And that's the real number and then plus the imaginary number that's denoted with an I. Uh, and we want to have a new line like that, just because it looks better. But yeah, so try a more complete design if myComplex class is shown. Um, yeah, I don't think so. You've already spent enough time on this um, exercise. We'll just go into the next exercise. Exercise 3.2, the polynomial class. So that's the end of this video. That's the end of exercise 3.1. Everything's pretty much complete except for that extra part. Um, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching. Thanks for being patient.